The following is intended only for mature audiences. Always consult legal and medical professionals when needed. Viewer discretion is advised.
From a an energetic standpoint, anything physical in the body that sets up as an illness stems from an energetic perspective to begin with. So how are these things impacting our chakras? How is it internalizing?
I guess we'll call it the awakening time where they're more aware. Oh my gosh, I can tell my cat's acting funny, or I'm feeling like I'm being watched. And they're more aware than they are most of the time. I mean, it's like,
right? A lot of them, for me, I had a little girl come to me. I was at church, and that was the first really.
And all of a sudden, within a couple of days' time, somebody's either lost their job or somebody's car broke down. You know, these are the accidental sides of manifesting.
Stories happen to people, and they take it on themselves. They take it on their shoulders. They take it on their heart. And, a lot of this stuff challenges them and their beliefs about themselves, about it limits who they can be.
I like to look at their charts before I do healing session with them. And if we can get their chart, we can really pinpoint, a lot of these are past life things coming forward.
What it is we have a conversation with that spirit, and we let them know why we're there. We also...
but as far as the negative aspects, it can really lower your mood, and, it can completely depress you. And I've seen that with a lot of people.
Because it was a shock for me, I expanded my knowledge, and I stepped into energy healing, and then I went into shamanism. So in working with my guides,
remember to mark your calendar. Coming up September 18th, live on Terra Turas is going to be our special guest, Nancy Gardner. She is a certified Tai Chi and Qigong instructor. She's going to be talking to us and leading us through all of the understandings of the medicine wheel. So join us September 18th, live on Terra Turas, 9 p.m. Eastern, while we walk the medicine wheel with Nancy Gardner. Now, here this evening are the four people that we're going to be speaking with. This evening is actually going to be revolving around the seances. And that's going to be by Reverend Pat Beers, and she's down in the lower left-hand corner. Right above her, Mr. Malcolm Spears. To Malcolm's right, in the upper right-hand corner, is KB Hurst, and down in the bottom right-hand corner is Lisa Fry. How is everybody doing this evening? Oh, see? Here it starts already. Pat, I'm telling you, you did it to me yet again. One of these days, I will actually have a show. Don't even open your mouth and tell me no. I don't want to hear it. Now everybody can hear you. Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
good evening.
Pat, I am just going to go ahead and turn this right over to you. Again, the topic this evening is seances. Pat's going to be talking to us about seances, and everybody else is going to be working right along with her as we'll all kind of learn something new.
Well, first thing I want to tell everybody is it's not like the things you see on TV. Yes, sometimes we do get wrappings, and sometimes the table will. I've had big oak antique tables undulate and scare people to death. But what I want y'all to remember is that this is not fun and games. It can be fun. It is not a game. Ask that you always be respectful when you're doing this. I have a friend that will invite a group of us over, and there are a couple gals that don't come anymore because they would sit and they would, oh, come on, Granny, you can do it. And it just really kind of ruined the mood. When I'm going to do a seance, I ask, first of all, no one under 18. I have had people come and bring children as young as 6 weeks old, and I have asked them to leave. If someone's a mature 16, that's different than, a 14 or 13-year-old. When we start, I always sage people. Annie, you can do it, and it just really kind of ruined the mood. When I'm going to do Electronics are fun today, folks. I mean, I've been dropping calls like crazy. I've been trying to do things with my computer. You can't connect. But anyway, when people come, we normally sage them, or you can use tincture bells, anything that will kind of clear their energy. I ask that they not be drinking before they come. I ask that they're not doing anything mood-altering medications or smoking anything that's going to affect them. I try to sit male, female, so we have a balance. We say prayers together. I like to say the Lord's Prayer, and we also do the unity prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is, and all is well. I do an opening statement, opening the door between the two worlds, the physical and the etherical. Ask that if anyone has anyone in particular that they would like to talk to, we try to get them to come. I have had spirit follow me for a month, sometimes 2-3 months, because they're trying to connect with a loved one, and the loved one goes, oh, I want to talk to my aunt, I want to talk to my grandmother, I want to talk to so-and-so. And then they kind of scare themselves out of hearing that person. So they will show up. I had a gentleman named Sam follow me for almost a year until some of his family happened to be at a seance we were doing, and he got to connect with them. And it's just I just ask that you be respectful. I like to put a glass of water someplace near where I'm going to be sitting, because water will sometimes attract negative energy. And it's very interesting because when we're all done, the seance normally lasts anywhere from an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how big the group is that's participating. And you'll pick up that glass of water after it's over and look at it, and it looks like it's carbonated. And it's not. It's just little entities that we didn't want to be there maybe are attracted to that water, and they will go in there. I ask that anyone there with me tell me what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're feeling, because not everyone wants to talk to me. Sometimes they want to talk to their own loved ones, and they'll come to them. One time, down at the Theosophical Society in Akron, there was a gentleman named George, and his wife's name was Roseanne. And George wanted no part of this. That's fine, Roseanne, if you want to do this, but I'm not really into this stuff. And so every time we would get together, and we did this every couple months down there as a fundraiser, it was always, George was Native American, and we would have so many Native Americans come. So she convinced him to come. And he's sitting there. There are 8 of us around this big oak pedestal table. And we can hear the drum beat. We can feel people walking behind us. There's actually a breeze. And he was oblivious until finally one of them kind of got the back of his neck and just I think they kind of scared him half to death, because it's all of a sudden he could tell someone was touching him. And it turned out to be his grandfather. And it was just wonderful, because for years he had said he wanted to talk to him, but was never open to hear him talking with him. Sometimes we go way back in time. Relatives will come to you. My own biological mom came to me as a very young woman, and I never saw her like that because she was in her 40s when I was born, and didn't recognize her. And my uncle, one of my favorite uncles, Uncle Freddie, came to me in a wheelchair. I never saw him in the wheelchair. I only saw him. He was my friend's favorite person, and they knew he was there. It was going to be a lot of fun because he played the concertina, and he had been in Hawaii in the Navy, and he had a grass skirt he would bring, and he would dance. And that's how I remembered Uncle Freddie. I did not remember him as this old man in a wheelchair that's trying to give me a bouquet of flowers. So you just never know, but it's always very interesting. We ask only to speak to the highest and best of the light, and we ask always that they come with a positive message. So it's just it's a very interesting experience, and if you'll just be open, and if someone's very fearful, they can shut the whole thing down. So I'll kind of ask before we start, how do you feel about this? Are you excited? There's nothing here that's going to harm you. Yes, it will be a different experience, and we never know, this experience is never the same way twice. Sometimes you will feel cold air around your feet, around your body, or you may feel extremely warm. Someone standing next to you that's like a little blast furnace, and you'll be extremely warm. It's always in the long run fun. And I did it for a family last fall, and they were from the Ukraine area, and they had relatives that no one had seen. And some had been killed in the Holocaust. And it was just so interesting to have those people come forward, and they're all looking at each other going. So I told everybody, go home tonight, write down what you remember from this, and then ask them to come to you in dream time and show you what it is they were trying to tell you. And so now they've started a book. Everybody writes down their stuff, and they keep track of all these things, because it's like once they make connection, they'll often come back to you again. And then when we're done, I go around. If I'm not getting anything anymore, I will go around and I will ask, is there anyone you did not hear from that you wanted to hear from? And sometimes they come forward and sometimes they don't. They can be just as stubborn on the other side as they were when they were here. And then I always close the door between the worlds, and we're all done. And I do like to have soft lighting. I prefer candles to electricity. And it's just very interesting.
Very cool. I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. What would you say the biggest misconception about seances is?
That they think they're going to see things falling off a wall, that they're going to be somebody's going to come and maybe, try to scare the bejeebers out of them or attack them in some way. And a lot of times, just like anything else, when we're doing spiritual work, we'll often get someone go, oh, I smell roses, or I smell bread baking, or I smell cookies. And that's a relative, coming through and saying, hey, I'm here, pay attention. Look at me. If you knew Grandma always make, it's just, they get this theatric thing in their head about what they think they're going to see. And sometimes it's like that. I'm not going to say it isn't. I've had entities appear behind me that I spend a lot of time with my eyes shut. So I'm watching my invisible TV screen that you all can't see. And you're sitting there with your eyes open. And it's like one of my guys is actually an alien. And he's about 7 foot tall. He looks like Gumby, only he's brown. And he scared the bejeebers out of my friends. And they're all going, and I'm like, do I want to know what's going on? And they said, well. And I started laughing because he immediately identified himself to me, and I knew who it was. So I'd say that's the biggest misconception that people have, that it's going to be like TV.
So, Pat, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
There's so many different tools and things that people can use. Like I use a spirit board. What do you think is the biggest difference between what a seance does and, just using a pendulum or a spirit board? How does it work differently?
To me, it all intertwines. It's like astrology and all these other things that we find all intertwine. I don't, I have a spirit board that you made for me. I seldom use it. And it doesn't have to be at night to do a seance. I've gone out to lunch with friends, and if someone wants to communicate with them and I'm just sitting there with my hands on the table, behaving myself, and the table starts to vibrate or something, and they'll go, what's that? And so I say, just put your hands up there and let's just see. And I do start with us touching thumbs and little fingers together just to make a connection with all of us. I do ask that everybody take a deep breath and hold it to the count of 4 and blow it out through their mouth. We do that 3 times so they leave the day. But they're all just different methods. It's just like people who read and use only tarot cards. I use my Dane cards. I do psychometry. I do billets where they write their name on a piece of paper and hold on to it, and we take it out of a basket. To me, it's just all one big family. We're just different branches of it.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. All this stuff. I mean, I've had I think I've been to 2 of them with you at this point. Yeah. And I'm always fascinated by the things that you will pick up in the room. And because I'm so used to using a tool when I do my stuff, that I'm fascinated by the way that the energy works with the people in the room. Everyone's energy is so different, which is why I like, the masculine, the feminine, when you mix it up. And I enjoy hearing, I think I can't remember who it was, it might have been Rosie, but I just remember hearing you say like some family person's name or family member, and, they're bawling their eyes out, because they can't believe that it actually happened. Like, oh God, she really is talking to this person. And I think it's fascinating because I don't see things. I hear, but I don't see. And I think it's fascinating to go to a seance. And if you're skeptical, I think in those cases, you will walk away with reassurance that everything that you're seeing and hearing is authentic. So.
Yeah, they usually have a way of going, excuse me, it's me. Should I tell them about, where they'll say something that maybe that person, nobody else knows, or maybe something embarrassing that they'd rather not talk about, but connecting with that person, say, it's me.
Yeah.
Do you use the energy of the group when you're working on a seance in a circle?
Honestly, no. I can go, and I'm terrible with names, Malcolm. You know that. So you got a group of 8, 10, 12 people. Mm-hmm. I'll go, the person over there, or the person to your right, if I know someone, or the person to the left. I usually just see whatever is important to that individual. I don't see a group energy, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
If it's a family, I might get a little more connection. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I wish y'all could see my invisible TV screen that I watch all the time.
Pat, there's a question from the chat room from Laura, and she asks, do you protect yourself from unwanted guests?
Yes. That's why the prayers, that's why I ask my angels and guides and everyone else's guides to be with them, so that we talk only to the highest and best of the light and block all negativity. And that's why we sage or use tension bells to just kind of clear the energy.
So do you find that you have energies other than past loved ones come through? Do you talk to, do you bring across any angels or energy, even things like that?
Angels, pets. Not everyone has lived every lifetime here on Earth. So you'll sometimes, I don't like to call them aliens, but you will connect with entities that are not of this planet, shall we say, because they usually come through. Just, I tell people, think about the movie Avatar. They will come through and they will identify themselves, and I get that often.
Wow.
Have you had much physical phenomena happening in your seances?
We have. Some of the funniest ones were, if we have a candle burning, even if it's not supposed to be a drippy candle, I would often have hearts form in the wax. Yeah. That would melt down. Sometimes the table will look like it has a hole in the middle of it, and it's just white light. Sometimes there'll be wrappings from under the table, and you can see everybody's hands on top. I don't, but everyone else does. And who did that? Well, everybody's hands are on top of the table. So, yeah, who did do that, So it's interesting. It's interesting. And I like it when the scents come through. Somebody's aftershave. If someone was a woodworker, you'll smell the wood. That kind of stuff. It's just always fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. Because I've always liked the energy of a circle, because you can really ramp up the energy.
Oh yeah.
And I find that it also helps the people who are sitting to elevate their energy as well. And so, because you don't need somebody pulling down the juice.
And that will happen sometimes. Jared could speak to that. We've had different times at the shop when we would have some, and the whole reason they were there was to debunk that this could actually happen. Mm-hmm. And then something happens for them, and it's like, well, that was just an accident. That wasn't anything. And if they can, and that's why if you have like men, it's just like being at the school dance. The men want to sit together over there, and the women want to sit together over there. We got to break them up and get that energy, because we each elevate the other. So if at all possible, I try to do male, female, or break it up in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think makes the best seance?
Positive attitude, no fear. And I know people are scared that they are going to hear something. And what I love is when they see something that they can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it may not be for them what they're seeing. It may be for someone else there, and they'll go, well, I'm seeing this, or I'm seeing that, or I'm hearing this, or I'm hearing that. And it may not be for them. It may be for someone else. Like if someone was a motorcycle person, and they'll come to someone totally unconnected to them, and they'll rev a motorcycle engine. And they may be the only one. Now, others may feel the vibration, but only one particular person is hearing it. And they'll say, I don't understand this, but, and that's the favorite thing for me to hear is, I don't understand this, but, and then they'll share whatever information that they're getting. It's really comforting. It really is. It may not sound like it, but it is. It really is.
I would imagine that for someone that was just a little skeptical or afraid, a seance would be the perfect way to kind of introduce them, because you might have 10, 12 people sitting around them. So they're not by themselves. You know, it's not like they're in a dark room, you know,
Right.
conjuring something.
They think that's what we're going to do.
Right.
You know, they think
Conjure.
Spooky.
So earlier you said that if they're under 18, you know, you pretty much ask them to leave. Can you explain to the people that are watching why you would ask somebody that's younger to leave? I mean, especially if they're bringing in a 6-month-old child. I mean,
that baby was in a car carrier. I think it was like 6-8 weeks old. I mean, I couldn't believe. And she got really upset with me. And I said, honey, if there's someone else that can take this child outside and sit with them, that's fine. I'm not going to expose them to this. If you watch, there's a new program about psychic kids. And these kids, I don't think any of them are over 15. Some of them are 7, 8 years old. And they're so open. And they're just, and if you get, I guess the easiest way to explain it is the lesser, the earthbounds, the alcoholics, the whatever, and their energy is not exactly at the highest vibration to start with. They will attach themselves to those kids. I don't know how many years now well, gosh, how many years has it been since I went to Gettysburg with Melody but people would watch these programs, and then they couldn't understand why their houses got all this racket going on, and why the cupboard doors are opening and closing, and why things are flying through. And it's usually a teenager whose energy is mega high to start with. And so these entities, they're like that light to the moth, man. They're going to go there and they're going to try to attach to that. And it's not fair. I just will not take the chance to expose.
Totally agree.
You know.
Pat, there's 2 questions from the chat room. One is from our very own Jared Walters, and he asks, Pat, how should people prepare before coming to a seance?
This is going to sound crazy, but I would ask them to take a shower and just wash away the day. Be open and receptive to what you may not understand what you see and hear and feel right now. It may take it a couple days, couple hours, couple weeks before it clicks with you, if you will. People often call me and say, oh, you know, da-da-da-da-da, do you remember? Well, sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't. But that's the easiest way. Just try to leave the day outside when you come. Try to relax and just have an open mind and be receptive. Spirit's always all around us. People just don't realize how. Watch your animals sometimes. They'll let you know someone's around.
Do you ever encourage people towards the end of the seance to share any of the stuff that they've gotten?
I ask them to share it constantly during the thing.
Oh, during? Okay.
Yeah. And people say, well, how do you know? I will rock forward and backward. I will rock side to side. My voice will change. The energy just feels different. You can just tell when it's someone else. You know, grandma's going to come in a very loving energy, where grandpa may have been a hard nose, get the work done. I don't care how you're feeling. The hay has to be brought in, you know, so there's that difference in energy and in people.
The other question that was from the chat room is that what would you tell kids who play with spirit boards, etc., at parties? And I think that Jared was mentioning that KB is going to talk about this when she does her spirit boards. But when it comes to seance, what would you tell younger people about seances?
Same thing I tell adults. This is not a game. Be respectful. Be serious. Protect yourself. Say prayer. Express the fact that negativity is banished. You know, not that they don't have a place sometimes. I mean, it's happened. My prayer always is to give people the information they need to make the decisions they need to make or to bring them peace in some way. And I have had people come who they thought the family member committed suicide and it was an accident. I've also had the same thing in reverse happen. They thought it was an accident and it was really a suicide. People who have been murdered, family members who have just disappeared and nobody knows where they are or what they're doing. Sometimes we'll get some of that. Every time it's different. No two are ever alike. We did one in Warren years ago at the old Scope Center. It was cafeteria tables, the kind that they fold up in the middle with the Formica tops. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, please, because I was doing it for them for a fundraiser. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that this was going to work. And there were people then, we could see, I think 12 possibly at the tables. And then we put one on each end in chairs, and then they sat in circle around us. And it was so interesting because everyone was participating. And the one sitting in circle, like, well, I didn't get chosen to sit at the table, so that means I can't participate. And I'm like, no, that's not going to save you. You know, if Spirit has a message, you're here in the room with us, you're going to get a message. And sometimes you get a message to take home to a loved one or to a friend. And pets will come through. Pets will come through. I will see the pets, and sometimes they'll give me a name, and I'm thinking maybe this is a person, and it's not. It's a pet. So it's just interesting.
What is your most memorable experience?
I would say the night that it was at that Scope Center, at that crazy cafeteria table, that both my biological mom that I grew up calling aunt and my Uncle Freddie came through. Wow. Because I always ask my family to come. You know, my husband doesn't come to me. He goes to all my friends and talks to them. And my Red Hat ladies never saw him except at his funeral, but he'd go bug them, and they call me up and go, why is your husband bugging me? I go, because he knows that I'm expecting it, and he's just not going to do that. I think, too, when we were doing, we had a big round oak table at the Theosophical Society. And that's a pet. You know, those suckers are darn heavy. And my girlfriend had one. She had 2 houses on her property, the original farmhouse, which had 2 rooms upstairs, and it was a living room and a kitchen down. And that table would undulate. It was like it was liquid. It would just undulate. And it was like it was alive. It was just, you know, so interesting. And a card table would try to walk up the wall. Because my girlfriend used to tell us she wanted to see all 4 legs up, and the sucker would either flip upside down, or it would try to walk up the wall, and we'd have to get up and keep your hands on the table, and the table's literally going, and it's trying to go up the wall.
Wow.
Once in a group that we were using a TV table, and it was a low ceiling house. It was like an 1840s house we were in. It had a super juicy amount of energy. The table got stuck on the ceiling. We were trying to pull it down. Yeah. It happened once. But,
no, that's what I would do. I'd be like, oh, no.
I'm out of here. No, it was great. And
oh my goodness.
The owner of the house was an older woman. She'd been widowed quite some time. And the table went over and waltzed with her. It was really an amazing night.
Wow.
So it's that's probably about the wildest phenomena that I've seen like that.
It is fascinating because you know, and don't you, Malcolm, sometimes feel like you're back in that time frame? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
She's back young again with that husband, and you feel like you are there. You're not in our time and our place here. You are back with them in their time and their space. You just truly like transport there. It's just
Yeah. Well, I'm getting like full. I don't know if you can see it, but
Yeah,
I
I can
got
see
like
it.
full goosebumps here. Here, standing straight up.
Have a little
It's-
company there, do we, Malcolm?
I believe I do. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I haven't done a circle in quite a while now. Maybe it's time to get that going again.
Wow, yeah. And when we first went to Virginia Beach, I think it was a year or two after Buzz died, the For Purpose Inc. group, we did seance down there, and it was just a regular round. What are those, Michael? 8-10 foot tables that you would find at any wedding reception or something. And Buzz came, and he's floating, sitting Indian style in the middle of the table. I'm not saying a word to anybody because I didn't really know these people. I said I would do this, but I wasn't going to tell him Buzz was sitting Indian style in the middle of the table. And someone said, "Oh my gosh, look at that." You know, so it's just like each time you do it, it's a new experience. You just never know what's going to happen. You just never know.
Do you use? Do you do the same format every circle, or do sometimes you feel like doing billets, or you just kind of change it up, or do you have like a format?
For the seance, it's always sitting at a table. I do the opening prayer. I do the closing, sending them back to where they came from, harming no one up on their way. Because when I first started doing this, I was over in Sharon, PA, and this young man was 16 years old and had a heart attack at high school. He came off the basketball court and died in the locker room. And I'm talking, 40 years ago, since I got a birthday coming up, guys. And I'm coming home and I'm driving a van. I'm driving a Lumina. Remember the Chevy Luminas? I'm driving one of those, and I keep seeing this thing in my back seat, the shadow popping. And I had stopped at McDonald's to get some coffee and go to the restroom. And I saw him and I said, "All right, you can come in McDonald's with me, but when we come out and you get back in the car, then you have got to return to the light. You got to go." "Do I have to?" "Yes, you have to." But his mom had been trying so hard because she didn't know if he was in pain or what happened. And he said, "No." He said, "I'm just standing there looking at myself on the floor going, what happened?" But there was just a McDonald's over there that hadn't been before, and he was just so excited to see a McDonald's that he wanted to go. So, and that's the reason I work very hard at closing the door and asking them to return, and because they will try to stay sometimes.
Pat, I'm going to ask another question that's here from the chat room. This is from Nancy, and I'm going to rephrase her question just a little bit. But the basic premise is, would a seance work for her to find out? She missed her father's passing, what she says, by 3 minutes. And she needs to try to find out if he had forgiven her because they were extremely close. So it's one of those things. Would a seance help her grab some closure, grab some love, and things like that?
I think it would. And she can also ask him to come to her in dream time and talk to him. And yes, I think it would. That's why I think the peacefulness in cases like that, we're a lot of times they don't want us around when they pass. And so they go just before, they wait till you go to the restroom or turn your back to look out the window and they leave us. But I think it would.
Fantastic. Folks, right now we're going to take a short intermission. And when we come back, we're going to have a few other questions and a few more things with Reverend Pat Beers. And this evening, we're talking about seances. We'll be right back. Don't forget to mark your calendars for September 18th. Live on Terra Turas is going to be Nancy Gardner, certified Tai Chi instructor and Qigong instructor. She's going to be walking the medicine wheel. And she's got a lot of information that she's going to be able to share with us about that. So mark your calendar. September 18th is Nancy Gardner. Now I'm going to bring you back here live with all four of us. And there is something that we had spoken about before. But coming up, you're going to also want to mark your calendar for October 30th, the night before Halloween.
Yep.
October 30th, we are going to do a live seance, broadcast live on the air. And Pat Beers is going to be doing her seance live from Jared's house. Jared lives in Sandusky, Ohio, and he lives in a house that's almost 100 years old. So there's a lot of history in that house. But again, we're going to be doing a live stream, multiple cameras if we can, but we're going to be doing a live stream of Pat doing a seance October 30th at 9 p.m. on the Terra Turas Show.
And you need to contact Jared for that one, or Michael. When we've been talking about seance, and seance can be just sitting in circle, no tables, no nothing, just people sitting in a circle. I did that at Chesterfield, Indiana, at Camp Chesterfield a few times. And table tipping can be, to me, it's usually a card table or something very small that then can, energy. We used to ask it yes and ask it no. And so it would pop up on one side and thump the ground once for yes, and then it would thump the ground twice for no, and then it would just bounce if it didn't have an answer for us. And so any kind of a table works. I have been doing this kind of thing. Princess died in 1994, I think they told me, and we were already doing it about 5 years before that, four of us. And what's so funny, the four of us who were doing it represented different directions. I was from the east, another gal was from the south, another gal was from the north, and another one was from the west. We didn't plan it that way. It just one night we went, oh, you realize we all represent a different direction here. And because the night the Princess died, I was on my way to do table tipping with the girls. And I just started praying for the highest and best for her. So, yeah, and then we'll be doing that private seance at Jared's house. That should be so cool because he's really into antiques, and it's just absolutely fascinating. It'll be in Sandusky. So that will be fun. So seances take many forms. I've done it. One of the weirdest ones I ever did, a friend of mine, I met him at a psychic fair and turned into a dear friend. And he wanted me to come to his house and do something to help, his sister connect. He lived in what had been his aunt's house. I get there. It's a glass table with a wooden frame around it. Remember the hexagon-shaped glass tables? And I'm like, oh, holy cow, what am I going to do with this? There have been a few times when I've gotten my, I'm going to say my come-uppance, and it's nothing bad. I'm sitting there talking to him about these people, and he says, okay, so we're all finished. I close the circle. He goes in the bedroom and brings me out 11 by 14 pictures from the early 20s and 30s of the relatives that I had been talking to him about. Now, guys, it's one thing to see it here, but you bring me something and I'm looking at it here.
Wow.
Another animal. And when we did it at a friend, we got the husbands involved. Kelly knew my husband, Roger, and being the chemist and the Scorpio analytical, my girlfriend invited us all over to dinner, but she neglected to tell the guys that there was just going to be a little seance after dinner. And I'm talking to her about this gravy boat. And I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember, but there used to be like a little round flower, like a buttercup often on dishes. And it was all crazed and cracked because it was so old. And I'm describing this thing, and it belonged to her aunt. And again, when we're all done, she gets it out of the china closet and brings it to me. And the guys were all laughing their butts off because I'm like, oh, So it's just, it's just interesting to see.
So who taught you to do seances? Was it something that was spirit-led, or did you have a teacher?
I had a teacher, the one who outed me. I was perfectly happy doing my little thing and nobody knowing anything about it. Her name is Mary. Mary, let's see, what is her middle name? Mary Ellen. She doesn't like to be called Mary Ellen, just like my sister didn't like to be called Peggy Jane. And she, oh, just come down. We go walking through cemeteries together. I mean, I had a wonderful teacher. My second near death was age 31. I had a wonderful teacher named Reverend Jack Baum. He had been a monk in California. And because of family things, he came back to Akron. And he would do a Wednesday night class. And it was so weird because it started out with like 14 of us and ended up being 13. And Malcolm was talking about manifesting things. We had a trumpet that would raise off the table and float in the air when we were together. I mean, this group just melded, with these classes. We'd have people come in, nothing like that ever happened. But boy, if you had the original 13 man, all bets were off. And we used to just blow his mind too. He was all about 5'3" and maybe weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. He was my first true metaphysical teacher who helped me put things into perspective. And then Mary is the one, oh, just come down. We're just going to play with table tipping. We're going to play with the card tables. No big deal. And then the first nights I'm there and the table's going like this and it's trying to walk up the wall. That kind of shook me up a little bit. And she's been a friend now for a lot of years, at least 20 probably. Well, yeah, because her son's 50 and he was in high school when we started this stuff. So just a few years ago, guys. But it's just fascinating. I mean, it's just, and what really fascinates me is how it's so all interwoven together. Just all interwoven together.
Now, Pat, I have a question. When you talk about grounding, getting ready for a seance, how do you personally prepare before you go into something of that nature?
I ask my angels and guides to be with me. I do the unity prayer protection. I do the Lord's Prayer. I just ask Saint Michael be with me. I tell people anytime you're doing something, take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it to the count of 4, blow it out through your mouth with as much force as you can muster and declare divine order. It just kind of brings things back into perspective or calmness, if you will. And the third time I do what I do, okay, gang, I need a little help down here. And it just seems to, and plus it puts everybody on the same page. If you're all breathing like that together, it kind of puts everyone on the same page energy-wise and helps to calm everybody down.
Now, do you take a shower before you go into the seance also?
I usually do it earlier in the day, getting ready. And then I put myself in the white light, the bubble white light, and I put I bless every person that's coming and every spirit that joins us. And I ask that, they come with positive energy and that they help someone. They give this person some kind of something that's going to help them in some way, either bring them relief, like Nancy said, being concerned that her father's upset with her, or that they just find peace in some way. And then I also, I ask that you take your shoes off. Thanks, Kelly, for reminding me, because I will ask people if they can just take their shoes off and have their bare feet and see their feet growing roots into the earth, or just, to kind of help them connect with nature. Oh, and then often people will have snacks or sometimes we'll have a meal, because this really does, you get hungry. I mean, it takes a lot of energy, not only from me, but from you all in your participation. You will find that you really need a snack of some kind after, be it something sweet or be it cheese and crackers, whatever your heart desires.
Would you say that you feel tired after?
No, I get wired for sound. So it takes me a good hour after to come back into. Those of you who do this kind of work know, I laughingly tell people we spend most of our lives with one foot in the real world and one foot in the etherical world. And sometimes it's kind of hard to get those two to jive, if you will. And you may find even now, I'm feeling that it's almost like we're into October already. And to me, that means the veil between the world is getting thinner, that spirit is closer. That is just, and for me, it stays this way till after the first of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when it started with Cinco de Mayo this year, the Day of the Dead for our Southern friends. It's just like the veil never really closed that much again. Usually, to me, it's very heavy during the month of May. Then it kind of goes away. And then it comes back normally late September, early October. This year, it's just seemed to stay that way for me ever since we started in May.
How many seances do you think you've done?
I was sitting here trying to think. I would say, well, I would say over 100. Over 100, because sometimes I do them, I'll be doing one every week, especially it used to be around October. People would want them, and then it kind of went out of fashion, and some people would want it after the first of the year. And so I'd say, well, over 100. And I honestly don't know, because it's just.
I know the first time I met you was, no, really, it was at Donna's shop in Sandusky.
Okay.
And it was a seance. We drove, I don't know, 3.5, 4 hours to come and see, the seance, because I had never experienced, and I had just started opening up at that time. And I was just totally floored and amazed. Actually, my husband was there with me as well. So that was the first time I saw you, and I was like, I want to do that.
What was his reaction? Because the men are usually more fun. I'm sorry, the ladies are usually more open and don't have, but the men are like,
what was your reaction? He wasn't even paying attention. He's sitting in here. I really think he was very kind of reserved about it, because he was taking classes with me, and we were both, opening up at the same time. And I think he just was a little bit more reserved about it because he wasn't sure.
Right, but it also helped him to understand that this stuff is real.
Right, right. So he would have, in knowing him, I'm sure that after we left, he had a whole lot more to say than he did. So, he's over here giving me this.
Yeah, usually the comment is, that stuff for real? I mean, did that really just happen?
Yeah. So really, really amazing. That was the first time I met you, and I was talking online today, going, "You guys got to come and watch this."
It's interesting. And it's never the same way twice.
Right.
Pat, do you find it easier or harder in seances now that people, generally speaking, are a lot more awake?
Well, I find it easier, I guess, because they're not so keyed up and afraid. Thank you, Malcolm, for saying that, because it reminded me all electronics go off. If you've got a watch on, turn your phone off, because people have watches that alarm, and there's nothing like being deep in concentration and having somebody's watch go beep, 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 and you about go through the ceiling. I guess I have to say it's easier because people are more receptive now. Before, they would come with this show me attitude, prove to me this is, I want to see it, but prove to me that this is real. And now most people, I think, have had little experiences, or they truly want to experience this, and so they're a little more open. Plus, I think movies like Avatar and some of these others have really helped. Sixth Sense and all that. I think it's made people. What was Whoopi Goldberg's?
Ghost.
All these movies have got people at least going, that's Hollywood, and then they go, but so yeah, I think it's easier now. They're not as hard and cold about it, I think, as they've been in previously.
And Pat, there's a question from the chat room from Hank, and he asked, do you have any experience with the apports, which are the physical items appearing from thin air, and it could be just about anything, or ectoplasm, or anything like that, residual item?
I don't know if it's ectoplasm, but we have seen fog, people call it, around others. We have, like I said, the candle wax, a candle that was not supposed to would melt and leave things. The apports, I think what happened, we'd find them after the fact. You know what I mean? It's just, we weren't expecting, but feathers or heart-shaped stones, even in people's flower pots or something, you know, and just things that they may have been there before and nobody noticed, but they do happen.
Do you by chance use trumpets during a seance?
I have not. I haven't since I was studying, and there are people who have trumpets. I have friends who have trumpets, and sometimes they will float. Sometimes they're standing upright and they'll lay over on their side, but they don't fall. Do you know what I mean? They'll just kind of, it was sitting upright and we're finished and we're looking around and it's on its side. It's like, wait a minute, you know, because none of us are near it. None of us are touching it. Interesting. Yeah.
Have you ever had any disembodied voices in a seance? Like you actually, everybody can actually hear what's being said? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the ones I get, you know, I'm like, okay, but I guess I'm so used to it now, it doesn't bother me if people go, you hear that? You know, and if everybody goes, no, and it's like, okay, we'll go on, we'll be doing something, and someone will say, I heard that one, you know what I mean? So it's kind of comical. But yeah, we do. And feeling being touched, I mean, and the cold air and the heat, usually it's cold air around your feet and your ankles and sometimes around your shoulders. You can feel people touching you. Maybe grandma always pulled your ear and gave you a kiss on the cheek. You know, you may feel grandma pulling your ear or somebody messing with the back of your neck like people like to do with kids. And, you know, it's just interesting. It's just, and I truly don't think about it because I'm so used to it. I don't think about it.
Pat, have you ever had any? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go right ahead, Gaby.
I was just going to ask, have you ever had anything truly alarming or terrifying happen during one? And if so, how did you handle it or rein it in?
Usually I will see St. Michael or I will get this feeling that's just not right. And like I said, Amonton is my guide's name. And one of my protectors, if you will, would come and I would know and I'd say, be gone. You're not welcome here. It is time to leave. If you're not of the light, go to the light, but be gone. Mm-hmm. And you got to say it in a firm voice. You can't say it in a nasty voice or a taunting voice. You just firmly say, out. Doesn't happen very often, but it'll be someone normally that's a little fearful. Or maybe they were drinking something before they came and we don't know, you know, so they'll be able to go out of sync anyway and they'll attract something like that.
I'll go ahead and ask you just real quick, Pat, because it came up as a question in the chat room from Maria, and this is an idea that we've been talking about for quite some time. She asked, would you be willing to teach a seance class?
Sure.
And at that, Maria, I would tell you this would be a perfect opportunity to say yes at some point coming up very soon. We're going to start offering webinars for classes and for things from all of our panel members if they would like to. So we can definitely put that on the schedule soon to where Pat Beers would be doing a webinar, a live webinar, and teaching seances. That would be a very interesting thing, and that would be like a 2 or 3 hour class, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that it would by the time you get into discussion and whatnot, but I hate to say it, but it's really quite simple. It's more of attitude and protecting yourself, protecting the people around you. Because I feel very responsible when someone comes to something like this. I don't want them leaving with unwanted company, you know, and I want them to understand exactly what was going on when it was going on.
How often are you doing seances now?
I haven't done any. Well, my health has been an issue here, so if I'm not feeling good, I don't do it. So far this year, I've probably done 2, and then we've got this one coming up with Jared. But normally, it's not unusual for me to do 6, 8 of them a year, depending on what's happening. Because what happens is someone has one and, you know, someone couldn't make it or they come and it's like, oh, I forgot to ask. And, you know, but I have to be feeling good. And I like to have someone there to be my balance. I need someone that I know and I trust to be sitting there because I go out. You know what I mean? It's like I'm changing someone. My voice will change, my features will change, and I need to know that there's someone there that's going to kind of keep me safe and hold my space and help me to come back if I'm having difficulty coming back, which very seldom happens, but every once in a while it will.
Yeah. Yeah, the spiritualists call that the doorkeeper.
Yes.
All right, now since you mentioned that, Pat, what would happen if you did not have someone there to kind of hold on to you on like the ethereal side and say, here, you're grounded, to help balance you out? If that person wasn't there, what would happen to you and how would that affect you?
I think I would have a hard time coming back. That's why I quit meditating, because I used to meditate half an hour a day. And then it got to the point that I would be meditating 2-3 hours and I would have a terrible time coming back. And I just said, no, I'm not doing this. If you guys are not going to respect me and honor me, even with a timer, I would have a hard time coming back. It was just like, so it would be hard on me. It would be hard on me. And I know a lot of my friends, when they do this stuff, they get exhausted. I don't. I get energized. I get energized from it. It's an interesting thing.
And there's no doubt about that. Oh, if any of the rest of you have any questions, we've actually hit our hour and we're getting ready to wrap our show up for this evening. So, Malcolm, did you have anything else that you wanted to ask?
No, I think I'm good. Pat's answered pretty much everything I could think of.
Kelly?
Same here.
She's gone through an awful lot. Lisa?
I think she answered everything on the list that I had to ask. So,
can I tell on you? Can I tell on you, Lisa? At break, Lisa says I have this list, and you covered them all before I even got to ask them.
She did such a good job on covering all of the really important information. I just thought she did a fantastic job, and I was like, "Dang it!" I felt so prepared. Oh well. Good job.
I'm going to take a few seconds here, and I had not accounted for this. I'll put it in a post on our Facebook page, Terra Turas, which you can check us out on Facebook, just /Terra Turas. You can check us out on our own webpage, terraturas.com. You can also check out all the previous shows either on Facebook or on our YouTube channel at Terra Turas. You can also check out, believe it or not, I sound like a broken record. You can check us out here and there. But you can also find our podcast on most of the podcast systems like iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podcast for Apple, and things like that. Well, everybody, we certainly appreciate you taking time to join us this evening. Pat, thank you. It has been a wonderful evening, finding out and learning a lot more about seances than what I actually thought that I knew.
Okay. Well, I hope I help people to understand that it's not theatrical. It is real. It is something. Please be respectful. If you wouldn't talk to your family members that way, please don't talk to the deceased that way. And just, it's a wonderful thing. It really, really is. It's a lot of fun and get a lot of information off in that way.
It is one of those things that I'm just checking back through the chat room to make sure. A lot of people are saying thank you from the chat room, Pat. A lot of people are enjoying seeing and listening to what you had to say. So very, very interesting evening. Again, we've been listening to Reverend Pat Beers talking about seances. And we will be back again next week. Again, our show format has changed just a little bit. Next week, we're going to have somebody from a live audience calling into our show, and they're going to have 4 or 5 questions that our panel members are going to be asking. They're going to be asked those 4 or 5 questions, and they will give actual psychic reading answers during next week's show. So make sure you tune in for that. And again, just one last time, please mark your calendars for September 18th. We are a live show with Nancy Gardner, and she will teach us how to walk the medicine wheel. So, for everybody on the show, we appreciate you joining, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.